You say, well, why, Brother Paul? I mean, on YouTube, that's all you talk about. You only have one sermon. Because it is so easy. Now, Adolphe Monod, the famous French Reformed pastor, he said, oh, the cross of preaching the cross, meaning that preaching the cross was such a burden because of its grandeur, because a preacher could never preach the cross as it ought to be preached. But there is another sense in which the preaching of the gospel is a lot easier than making disciples. You see, someone hears a preacher like me on YouTube, or you see me preach right now, but you don't know me. All right, I know how to make sentences connect together. But do you really know me? Do you really know if I'm a godly man? You see, in preaching the gospel, I can preach and go. I can stand in front of people and, boy, look like something very, very spiritual, and then go. And you never see my life. Do you see that? That's so easy. But he says, go and make disciples. And what does that mean? To make disciples, that means you are going, at least for a while, to imitate me as I imitate Christ, to follow me as I follow Christ. I am going to teach you not only with my words, but I'm going to teach you as you watch me live 24 hours a day. That's tough. That's part of the work of the church. That's part of the work of the church. This has, when I first was a missionary in Peru, I just discipled. And it was tough because people watched your life. But I'll tell you something that's been even more difficult. My 3 children. To disciple them. Because, they're just, they can, Dad, you said this. Why'd you do this? You see, it's so humbling, but it's so good. I would rather be crushed so that the hypocrisy would be torn out of me than to put on a mask and make everybody think I'm something I'm not. See, make disciples. It means that you live with people. You touch people. You get involved in their life. I was evangelizing one day. And boy, did I have a rude awakening. I was out there, man. I was handing out tracts and I was preaching and people were throwing the tracts at me. And I saw this guy look kind of a punk rocker guy, and he took off kind of one direction. I walked up there and put a tract on him. I said, here, this is a tract of the gospel about Jesus. He turned around and he goes, you don't care about me. And it stopped me in my tracks. He goes, do you care enough about me to be my friend? To come to my house? To get to know me and my problems and my messed up life? Or are you just out here winning brownie points for God? Caring about people. That's why even be very, very careful in your evangelism. People can recognize just superficial. I want to just put another notch on my belt. Look at me. I am a preacher that everybody persecutes. It's not about you. To disciple people, you've got to enter into relationships with people. And to have a church, you are committing yourself to enter into a profound relationship with people. That's why one of our missionaries said, Brother Paul, we need to start a church in this area. I said, well, why do you feel like we need to start a church? We need to start a church here because if we start this church here, then we can start this church over here, and we can use it as kind of a mother or a seed bed to plant other churches over here. And I said, stop. You don't plant churches so that you can plant another church. You plant a church because you care about the people. And if you have any other idea about it, you end up using people to fulfill your vision. You see, church is for these people. These people. And I want you to think about some of the greatest writers among the Reformers, the Puritans, the early Baptists. I want you to realize something. They never got on an airplane. They never traveled, some of them, outside of their country. Some of them even outside of their town. But as they pastored, and their sermons, their writings, their life of pouring themselves into a flock has been used to change the world. Adolphe Monod, the guy, I mean, he was so smart, his head must have been this big. He could do anything at the university. He could critical studies in Hebrew. Then they get him over here, critical studies in the New Testament. Then over here, history of the world. And I mean, just the guy could do everything. And they wanted him in the university so bad. And he said, no, I want to go pastor this little flock. And the book that he wrote, Les Adieux, the farewell, are 19 sermons that he preached on his deathbed to his flock. And the last few sermons he laid on his back like this and could only look up at the ceiling because he couldn't even turn his head to look at the flock anymore. That book is priceless. Sometimes we want to do so much that we don't do anything. And sometimes we do so much and you can discern in there, man, you're all about creating a name for yourself. You're all about some great thing you're going to do. I was preaching last year in a place, and people were coming from everywhere, but it really wasn't of the Lord. It was celebrityism, and it stunk. And I walked over in the corner, and the pastor came up to me, and he said, Paul, maybe you just ought to go somewhere and die, that no one will hear your name again. And what he meant is, maybe you need to walk away from this entire circus and go pastor a little flock of people and just die there. And walk away from this mess. You see, here's what I want you to see. I am 47. I am not, I'm not as old as these two guys here, but I'm getting older. I'm not as old as him, but I'm getting older. I'm over the hill, and I figured out